Hi fairies! So let's get to work. In today's video I've prepared one of my original concepts for you with the working title Seashell Empresses or Oyster Empresses. According to the design, it's a carnivorous pearl oyster. The entire body is made from the soft mollusk inside the shell, and instead of a head, she has a pearl. The whole concept should look both cute and dangerous at the same time. The top part of the shell is connected to the head, looking like a hat. Her hair and skirt are also made from the soft body of the creature. As part of my concept sketches, I drew her with an enormously wide mouth capable of eating large prey. For the dress design, I was inspired by my favorite fashion designer, Iris van Herpen. I wanted to portray the shell either as a classic pearl oyster, an oyster shell, or a fossilized version. Based on the design and character, I'll most likely go with the fossil option. For this doll, I wanted to get as close as possible to natural shell coloring, so I created several color tests based on real shell colors. Of course, I couldn't decide, so I'll do a poll on my Instagram. The viewers chose the pink version. I chose Draculaura from the G3 generation for this doll because of her cute face, pointed ears, and thicker thighs, which suit the character perfectly. Since she eats fish, humans, and anything else she lures in, it makes sense for her to have a few extra grams. As always, I start by cleaning the head. I remove the hair, then the inside of the head, clean off the makeup, and finally give it an acetone bath. Since acetone has a limited shelf life, I decided to clean some extra heads for future projects. Before cleaning, I soak the head in hot water to loosen the hair plugs. While the head is soaking, I cut up the entire body. For this pose, I need to remove the arms, cut the torso, separate it from the pelvis, and cut into the inner thighs so I can bring the legs closer together. Before assembling the doll, I create a wire frame for the shell she'll sit in. The whole shell will sit on a base that looks like coral and seaweed. Next, I start assembling everything with hot glue and wire. Before finalizing anything, I need to sculpt the shell to know how to pose the doll's limbs. I apply a layer of aluminum foil onto the shell frame. Now I know I need to cut out the shoulder joint from the G3 body, as the arms would otherwise be too far apart. At this point, I also decided to remove the lower legs, as I'll sculpt them myself anyway. With that done, I can start shaping the doll, regularly placing her in the shell to see how it all fits. I wrap the skirt's wire structure in aluminum foil and begin sculpting with epoxy sculpt. I then return to the shell and start sculpting the interior to fit the doll. I use Milan clay for the shell because it's lighter. First, I roll out the clay and then press it into the foil. Then I shape the outer part of the shell. After testing different versions, I chose a fossilized design mixed with oyster details since the classic version looked too kitschy. Now I alternate between sculpting the doll and the shell to avoid damaging newly modeled parts. While waiting for parts to harden, I outlined the mouth. I debated whether to just draw it or fully sculpt it. After lots of visual testing, I decided to sculpt it. First, I sketched the shape, then gently cut it out with a heated scalpel. I had to remove the entire jaw so I could later insert the teeth and tongue. I'll trim the jaw so it can fit back in while remaining slightly open and flush. I gently sand the edges, then sculpt the tongue and use Milan clay to smooth over the cut. Everything is left to harden. Next, I make small holes in the hardened clay and use super glue to insert the teeth, which are 3D printer scraps. While that dries, I sketch out the dress design. The inside of the mouth must be painted now because it will be inaccessible after more sculpting. Once done, I reattach the jaw and blend it in with more clay. Then I sculpt the full outfit. I rotate between sculpting the shell, the body, and the base. I tested several shell versions before settling on one. Before modeling the base, I make holes for wires that will be secured with hot glue. hairstyle should resemble a nun's habit, so I first create a skeleton frame to shape the clay before it hardens. Once all the parts harden in the correct shapes, I can attach them to the head. I add a new wire to the head since the old skeleton was only for shaping the hair. This new wire allows me to glue on the sculpted hair pieces. I then sculpt and fill in any gaps. I also decided to sculpt a bit more hair onto the head to make it look more natural. The final sculpted part is the shell piece that sits on her head. First, I wrap the head in food wrap to prevent the shell from sticking to it. Then I sculpt the shell. Now, I just add final touches like seaweed, anemones, a forehead detail, and I can start painting. The whole doll is carefully painted with diluted acrylics. I sand any rough areas and then apply the base pink color, which won the Instagram poll. I paint the shell and details next. Then I use an airbrush to create soft gradients, like in the concept. Everything is thoroughly sealed, and I move on to painting the face. Even though her head was supposed to be a pearl, I shaded it to make her look even more eerie. I finished by glossing the eyes and mouth for shine. I used pan pastels to add shading to the body and enhance the sculpted parts. I used the same process for the skull and other accessories on the base. When everything is done, I glue all the parts to the base, assemble the head, and place the doll into the shell. Now I glue on all the hot glue details like coral and seaweed. My boyfriend told me the ground looked more like gravel than an underwater surface, so I decided to redo it. I bought fine sand, applied watered down glue to the base, sprinkled on the sand, and sculpted it into soft waves. Lastly, I add sparkly paint details to the doll. I place her in the shell and glue the shell to the base. Finally, I paint small accents with watercolor pencils. I seal the whole base with gloss varnish and glue on all the final details like earrings, skulls, and tiny bones. Thank you and enjoy the showcase. Maraja Deepocean Trickster. Beneath the crushing weight of the ocean's silence, where no light dares to linger, reigns Maraja, the Seashell Empress, sovereign of the deepest deep. She rules with beauty and without mercy. Every creature of the abyss bows before her, not out of loyalty but fear. To escape her hunger is to escape death itself, for when her cravings stir, none are safe. Starved of flesh, she becomes a monster cloaked in charm. She dwells within her glistening shell, a throne and a trap. From its velvet shadows she sings like a siren, weaving melodies that draw prey into her waiting maw. Delicate yet deadly, she feasts upon fish of every kind, and when the sea grows quiet, even a warm-blooded sailor may sate her. She is the empress of suffering, a divine punishment in pearlescent form, and so great is the dread of her displeasure that some among her subjects step willingly into her jaws, believing a chosen death less cruel than her ire.